The power grid doesn't fail gradually. It collapses in a cascading wave that takes 48 hours to become irreversible, and by the time your neighbors realize what's happening, you'll have maybe 6 hours before the first wave of panic buying turns into something far darker. The grocery stores will be stripped clean in 90 minutes. The gas stations in 2 hours. And when that sun starts dropping toward the horizon on day 1, you'll either be locked into a defensive position with your priorities handled, or you'll be scrambling in the dark with everyone else who waited too long. This isn't about being paranoid. This is about understanding that human civilization is a thin electrical hum away from reverting to its base programming, and that programming doesn't include standing in line politely. Here's what nobody tells you about societal collapse. The thing that separates the prepared from the victims. It's not about having a bunker filled with canned beans. It's about the first 16 hours. Because once darkness falls on that first day, the social contract dissolves like sugar in warm water. The people who survive are the ones who understand that every decision made before nightfall is worth 10 decisions made after. It's basic physics applied to human behavior. Light equals order. Darkness equals entropy. And entropy, my friend, always wins unless you've already tilted the board in your favor. The first thing you do, and I mean within the first 30 minutes of realizing this is real, is water. Not food, water. The human body is a chemical factory that shuts down catastrophically without hydration. And most people have maybe 72 hours before desperation makes them dangerous. Your average city apartment has a water heater containing 40 to 50 gallons of perfectly drinkable water that 99% of people will forget exists. You need to fill every container you own. Bathtubs, pots, bottles, trash cans lined with fresh bags. But here's the critical part that separates survival knowledge from survival mythology. You're not storing this water for next week. You're restoring it for tonight and tomorrow because you're going to use those first hours of chaos to leave the city. And you need enough hydration to make that journey without stopping. The people who stay and ration their bathtub water are the ones who end up trapped when the second wave hits, which is always worse than the first. Next, and this is where the psychology starts, separating the living from the dead. You need to make yourself invisible before everyone else realizes they should be watching. Board up your windows from the inside, not the outside. Use furniture, mattresses, anything that blocks sightlines without advertising that you're fortified. The goal isn't to create a fortress that screams valuable supplies inside. The goal is to look already looted, already abandoned, already not worth the effort. Human predators, which is what your neighbors become after about 48 hours without food, are lazy. They follow the path of least resistance. A dark house with a broken front door handle and no obvious signs of occupancy gets passed over for the house with light leaking through the curtains and the sound of a radio playing. The third priority is information, and this is where most prepper advice fails catastrophically because it's built on movies instead of reality. Your smartphone is useless. The cell towers need electricity, and without it, they're just expensive metal poles. Your internet router is a paperweight. What you need is a hand crank emergency radio, the kind that picks up AM, FM, and NOAA weather bands. Information is currency when society collapses. Knowing which roads are blocked, which neighborhoods have descended into violence, which direction the majority of refugees are moving. This knowledge is worth more than gold in the first 72 hours. You crank that radio, you listen, and you plot your movement based on real-time intelligence, not assumptions. The people who survive are the ones who understand that staying informed means staying 3 steps ahead of the crowd. Now, here's where it gets uncomfortable, where the brutal pragmatism has to override your trained social conditioning. You need to secure your perimeter, and that means making hard decisions about other people. I'm not talking about violence, I'm talking about boundaries. When your neighbor knocks on your door, asking for help, asking to share your supplies, asking if you've heard anything, your answer has to be firm and immediate. You haven't, you don't, you're just as scared as they are. Because here's the chemical equation nobody wants to acknowledge. One person telling 2 people about your water supply becomes 4 people by nightfall, and 16 by morning, and suddenly. You're not defending against strangers, you're defending against a crowd that knows exactly what you have and exactly where you are. Compassion is a luxury of functioning societies. In collapse, it's a vulnerability that gets exploited by those who understand game theory better than ethics. The fifth thing, and this is time sensitive because you've got maybe 4 hours before it becomes impossible, is mobility preparation. Your car needs to be fueled, packed, and positioned for immediate evacuation. Not parked in a garage, not blocked by other vehicles. Nose out, tank full, with a pre-packed bag containing the essentials. Water, high-calorie food, first aid, a physical map because GPS is dead, and most importantly, a change of clothes that makes you look like everyone else. The psychological edge here is understanding that in collapse scenarios, standing out gets you targeted. You want to be forgettable, average, beneath notice. Your evacuation vehicle isn't an armored beast with supplies strapped to the roof. It's a nondescript sedan with half a tank. because a full tank makes you a target at checkpoints and roadblocks that will emerge faster than you think possible. 6. And most people won't prioritize this until it's too late, is sanitation. When the water stops flowing, toilets become biological hazards within 18 hours. You need a bucket toilet system set up before nightfall, contractor bags, kitty litter, or sawdust, and a sealed container. This isn't about comfort, this is about preventing disease, because more people die in the aftermath of societal collapse from cholera and dysentery than from violence. Your body's waste becomes a vector for catastrophic illness when modern sanitation disappears. And the people who survive are the ones who understood that managing human waste is as critical as managing water supply. It's unglamorous, it's unpleasant, it's also the difference between functional and dead. The 7th thing, and this is the one that haunts survivors in every after-action report. Every historical analysis of societal breakdown is establishing a decision tree before panic sets in. You need to decide right now, in the first 2 hours, what your red lines are. At what point do you leave versus stay? At what conditions do you help others versus prioritize your own survival? What level of threat justifies what level of response? These decisions cannot be made in the moment when adrenaline is flooding your system and your judgment is compromised. The psychological edge is pre-commitment. You decide now, with a clear head, and when the moment comes, you execute without hesitation, because hesitation is where people die. Not from making the wrong choice, but from making no choice at all. When that sun finally drops below the horizon on day 1, the world you knew is already gone. The power isn't coming back on tomorrow. The government isn't sending help. The trucks aren't restocking the stores. What separates the people who make it through from the ones who become statistics isn't luck or firepower or even supplies. It's understanding that preparation is a time-based equation, and the cost of every action multiplies exponentially once darkness falls. You either handle these 7 things before nightfall, or you spend the next 72 hours trying to accomplish them while competing against increasingly desperate people in increasingly dangerous conditions. And that's not a competition anyone wins. That's just entropy in motion, and you're either ahead of the curve or you're part of the collapse. The choice, for now, is still yours, but that window is closing faster than you think. Claude is AI and can make mistakes. Please double-check responses.